And that's starting up in about 2, and it'll make an announcement. So, welcome to the call. I'm so excited tonight because Mellen is going to take us on an advanced journey about the near-death experience and how we can facilitate a better experience for ourselves, and sooner or later all of us are going to go. There's no question about that. But how wonderful to just know what's going on and be able to direct that. So I'm excited to get some questions answered and hope that, some of you listening online call in and ask some questions. And, John, you'll get to ask anything you want to, honey. So,
thank you.
Yeah, pretty good. So, Mellen, we've heard your story, how you were dead for an hour and a half, and that was just quite marvelous. And every time I talk to you, I just learn something new, and it's quite wonderful. So why don't we start off? You mentioned there's a twofold purpose of the life review. So would you care to enlighten us about what that might be?
Mm-hmm. It's really important too. The life. Pardon me. Hello.
Okay. It sounds like some other people are joining us.
Okay.
And the line is not muted. It's open. So if you need to have noise in the background, if you could please do *6, that would be great. And we do want you to be able to ask questions.
Yes, and we'll stop periodically also when people want to stop and ask an important question. That's perfectly fine during this,
yes.
Because I'm sure it will spin off questions for people. One of the things I learned in my near-death experience, and I'll qualify this by saying that until I met Dr. Ken Ring and PMH Atwood, I didn't realize that some of the things I was taking for granted they were seeing for the first time. One of which is that I actually stopped the experience, and it became a very interactive experience, which is what I'll be talking about. And the other thing is that I return to the light daily, for the most part. Sometimes it seems for seconds, sometimes for longer. And I've also been able to develop this skill to return to the light and answer questions for think tanks and universities and different situations like that, because that's how I chose to use my experience, is to, I call it nuts and bolts channeling.
Uh-huh.
And I want to help try to answer questions that may solve some of the world's problems, which is where I spend most of my time, actually. But so I've had 20-plus years of going back to the light and asking the same questions over again, asking for details on certain questions. So I have a very well assimilated view of what happened to me, and from the different dimensions, different angles of the experience. So I'm able to speak about it from the metaphorical point of view, and we are very metaphorical beings. We love our metaphors. In other words, we live in our dreams mostly. And but I can also talk on the quantum physics level, because that is a part of the whole reality. So there's the different layers can be woven together, and that's what I've been able to do. So I have been able. I didn't learn everything I'm saying today just in my first trip to the light. I've had many trips since then to the light to get explanations and ask more questions. But I can tell you this: one of the things I did learn is that people that have a more extensive near-death experience, and for those that don't come back, they also have a life review. Quite often it's people that just had a short visit, just checked out for a couple of minutes or so on the operating table, or, say in a car accident, are the ones that quite often don't get a life review because the event is too short and there's too much going on. And I will talk about that later, what you can do to ask to come back right away. So remind me of that also. But one thing I learned, if you have a complete life review, there's a twofold purpose to it that is of universal importance. The first part of the life review, and for me it started at the second of my death and ticked backwards all the way to the moment of conception where life began for me in this life. It can go in either direction. It can be there can be different mixes of that with different people. So that's quite normal. But here's a couple of things that are going on during a life review. First of all, the life review is the almost automatic processing of all of your life's issues and your life history. If you've never processed your life, if you've never delved into why you are the way you are, or why people have been the way they are to you in your life, it will be revealed to you from a point of view in which you could see all sides. And this is very, very important for your spiritual growth. Because we have learned so many lessons in each of our lives, many of which we put down in the subconscious, and many of which we actually repress in childhood or for other reasons. We have repressed the lessons that we have learned. Some of us feel like we have to learn the same thing 10 times before we get it. Well, that may in fact be the case. When you're out of body and unrestricted, this life review is a great vehicle for you to understand your life and to process the life issues in the moment if you choose to do so. For many people, it's very natural, and for other people, it's a very difficult thing for them to do because it reflects back on the life you lived. If you were someone who accepted truth and insights in your life, you'll be more likely to accept these insights during your life review. It will be revealed to you, quote, whether you're ready or not in many cases. So what happens, and I ask people always to forgive me for saying this, but you will not experience judgment from the light. There is no judgment whatsoever when you get to the light. But you will experience the most severe judgment you can ever experience, which is self-judgment. When you're able to see why you did the things you did and why people did the things they did to you, it is an incredible moment of realization. And this is something that's very important for you to learn and to evolve, because you can't evolve unless you learn. A star can't evolve unless it collects a lot of energy. You have to grow. The other thing that's very, very important about the life review on the next level is, pardon me? Oh, okay. On the next level, the second-fold effect of the life review is something of universal importance to all of us and to the universe, and that is that the universe
Mellen,
itself.
I'm going to have to mute the line because people apparently are not aware that this is live. So hang on just a moment for me to mute, and then
we'll just edit out these rough spots.
Yes.
Okay.
I do want to tell the callers that are listening that we do want to have this call live. So if you could do your phone *6 or refrain from having other conversations, it would be really great, because we want this to be an interactive call. So after Mellen talks, I'm going to unmute the line and see if everyone has listened to that. Thank you, Mellen. Thank you so much. Go ahead.
So I was getting on to the second part of the life review, which has not been considered by many people, but it was revealed to me by the light, and that is it turns out that everything you've ever done in your life, every little thing you've ever done, is of universal importance, good or bad, positive or negative, and expands the whole consciousness of our own planet and of our universe. And so you can imagine that as you're having this very intimate, detailed life review, and you're processing the information, this is also you can also think of the light as a big supercomputer. And this is just a metaphor. The light is like a big supercomputer that's collecting this experience. And this experience is downloaded into the whole matrix, the oversoul of the planet. And in that regard, it's also relates to the universal intelligence, or what we might call the Book of Life or the Akashic Records. It turns out that each and every one of us are writing pages in this Book of Life and writing pages in the Akashic Record. The thoughts we've had, the desires we've had, the experiences we've had, however large or small, dull or exciting, are of universal importance. And so as you experience this life review and intimately review many aspects of your life, this is downloaded into the Oversoul matrix and collected. And this is why we keep expanding in consciousness. This is the memory of everything that's happened, and it builds and builds. And sometimes it's just as important to learn what not to do as to what to do. Both sides are important. And the one thing that nature loves is memory. Memory is very, very important to nature. Because without memory on all levels, from atomic to cellular to mental to spiritual, you would always have to be relearning the lessons. And evidence is in the universe that we do learn. We are on a stream of consciousness and continuum that keeps expanding and unfolding. So imagine that everything is being downloaded into this supercomputer for the rest of us also. Your life is important for me, and my life is important for you. And the lessons we share are of incredible importance, because it turns out from the Gaia point of view, which is one of the main lessons I learned on the other side, was to look at the universe and nature and ourselves as Gaia, G-A-I-A. It turns out there's only one of us on this planet. There's only one of us here. We're all the exact same being from the exact same source. But imagine a form of consciousness, a form of life that started out in a single locus and then started expanding like a lotus opening, and all the many petals of a lotus opening. And each of those petals are not only you, the individual, but the lives that you've lived as a part of the life of the whole. I call it the great self. We are a part of the great self. And this is why it's not very intelligent to treat others like they are not yourself. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. That's a sign of intelligence also. It's not just a commandment. It's very, once you get that we're all the same being and that we're all growing together and that we are going to keep growing together, then it becomes foolish to let any one of us suffer or starve to death. It's like letting your foot sort of rot off and watching it. It doesn't make much sense once you become, quote, enlightened or sensitive to this. So the life review is one way in which our knowledge base, our book of life, keeps expanding page after page, and we're all writing this book as we go along, by the way. It's also why the higher self keeps evolving also. Some people have the idea that, say, God is not expanding. God is set in static universe. Well, that's not true. Everything is expanding as everything expands together. And so as an individual you expand, and then you expand the whole by your experience. And this keeps adding up. There are pivotal moments in history, and you can look back in history, because I was shown this on the other side. You can look back and go, oh, I see what was happening now, because now I understand the Oversoul view or the Gaia view of what's going on. There have been periodic shifts in human consciousness which have been paradigm leaps. And this has been accumulating as humanity has been gaining experience and as more humans have come into the experience of life on this planet. We're actually going to need a few more humans on the planet before we can go to the actual next paradigm shift. Some people think it's going to happen magically in some ascension moment, but that really isn't a very natural view of what's going to be happening. There are paradigm shifts that actually, where you can tell the Oversoul itself shifted. You know, there was a time in human consciousness when everybody feared whatever it is you called God. God was to be feared, and God was a vengeful God.
That shift, long ago either.
I know, that was only a couple thousand years ago. That suddenly that shifted to this whole new paradigm that God is the Father, God is the nurturer, the God conception is rejuvenating and forgiving and loving. That was a big paradigm shift. And that happened when there was enough critical mass in the oversoul experience for the oversoul to actually grow. So not only are we growing, but the oversoul is growing, and the universe is growing in universal intelligence. So you see how that kind of works?
Yes.
So it's very important, this life reviews that we have. And that's why I have decided to work on this subject called, how to prepare for an NDE or what to do while you're on the other side. Because I think it can help humanity, and it can also speed up our evolution to this point that I think we all want to get to. I think most of us would be very happy with heaven on earth. And I think that's where our manifest destiny is going. That's what we're sort of designed to create on this planet before we have to leave the planet. And we will take this heaven with us everywhere we go. It's very, very important to, the ancients always, in most cultures, prepared for they prepared for the death experience. They prepared for their lives after the death experience. There were many versions of it. The Egyptians were quite elaborate about planning for their next lives. The Chinese were extremely elaborate also in preparing for their next life. And we sort of lost that in the modern world and in the West. It's still something that is very important to think about, to play with, and to explore. We need to spend time thinking about where we're going to go from here. People usually wait till they get close to death to start exploring those ideas. I think that's why, if you look at research, one of the most popular subjects on the internet now with baby boomers is, oddly enough, reincarnation. Hugely popular subject. And it's as you get closer than you are farther that you consider these concepts of what now, what's going to happen now. Does my life end here? Does my life go on? But up till now, it's been sort of a crapshoot. People have been highly, especially in the West, highly unprepared for death, and we sort of look away from it. We need to be more conscious about it, more engaged with the experience. This will also help you in case you have an accidental, whether it be on the operating table or wherever you have an accidental near-death experience, because you never know when one of those things are going to happen. Or if, in fact, it is a complete death experience where you actually leave this body and don't come back to it. You actually begin
So why not walk us through it? Say, let's do an NDE first. Say we're on the operating table and suddenly we're floating. What should we do?
First thing you should do is remember what we've been talking about. That's why it's so important to talk about this with each other and to read about it and study it. Up until very recently, like 1950s and 60s, this wasn't even talked about very much. So the first thing you want to do when you find yourself outside of your body, I often said, what happens if you wake up and find yourself dead one day? What do you do then? So the first thing is to remember consciousness. Keep conscious. This is something that's going to speed up everything now, is to remain conscious through the entire experience. Don't just faint, as happens quite often. A person will literally kind of faint through the experience, and you'll be taken directly through the experience without learning that much in some cases. So the first thing you want to do is when you find yourself in this situation, as I did when I had my NDE and succumbed to my disease, I suddenly found myself outside of my body, and it was so strange.
Did you know that you were dead?
Well, no, it was so strange. I was totally unprepared for it. It was so strange. I found myself out of my body looking at this man on the bed, and the man looked familiar. And it was a very strange experience, and I realized that was me. And then the experience was more vivid than a dream. I said, how can this be? I'm not dreaming. And so I began to panic. I literally began to panic, and I tried to get back into my body, which I couldn't. I also found myself down the hall in my caretaker's room, and she was still asleep, trying to wake her up, which I couldn't do. And then found myself suddenly back in the room looking at the last glimmers of light leaving my body. So the first thing is don't panic. How many people have...
don't panic. So you're still going to have all the emotions that you have when you're in your body.
Yes. That's mine and other people's insight on that. You still are you. You still are you. That's the amazing thing. You are just a discrete personality.
Yeah, kind of see-through.
Mm-hmm. And so the first thing we do, and believe me, if this happens to me again, that's the first thing I want to do is remember right away and don't panic, and go with and start going with the experience. Now, it's very possible that you can decide, say, if it's on the operating table or it's an action, you can decide, if you remember quickly, you can decide to return to your body as soon as possible. That's totally okay. And that's just a matter of remaining conscious, realizing what's happening to you, and I've been thrown out of my body, and try to get back to your body as soon as possible if you want to. Also, you can have a longer experience, as I did, because I wanted to spend time with the light, and I had no idea what was going to be happening next. The only problem with this is, in some cases, and this is sad sometimes, but in some cases, say on a battlefield or in a very severe accident where your body is far, far too damaged to recover, and say in battlefields, people's bodies have been instantly vaporized. There is no body anymore. Then you can't come back to that body. So then, and that's for most people that are unprepared for this. That's a terrible experience. This is why ghosts wander around battlefields, because they're out of time and space, and hundreds of years, sometimes thousands of years, can seemingly go by. So in those cases, you have no other choice but to go to the light or be stranded. And that's why some people find it's their calling to go out and help lost spirits or stranded spirits get back to the light. I think that's a very beautiful thing to do.
Yes.
But those are a kind of extreme cases. Many times, just coming back into the body will heal the body. That's the amazing thing about coming back into the body. I believe my healing, which was incurable and inoperable at the time, was healed because of this event. I literally got my healing while I was on the other side, processing my life and understanding why I, in fact, had gotten ill in the first place. And it had been all my own doing, by the way, because I believed that humanity was a cancer and we were going to kill the planet. Well, I'm a human, and I developed brain cancer. And so I won't do that again.
Right.
So it's very important to get past your dogma. Also, it's totally possible. If you're someone who never listened to anyone or anything in this life, it's very possible that you can slip right through a near-death experience and not learn much. It's very possible that you can slip right into death and reincarnation without having learned much at all. That is totally possible. So the idea is to be flexible in this life, not to be trapped in your dogma, because that can restrict you from receiving different bands of information. And there are some people that are so self-deluded that they have to go through this experience several times before that pattern is broken up. So it's always good to be flexible, to consider other opinions, and don't think you have all the answers in the world, or in fact your God is the only God in the world, because we all have the same God in many, many forms, and that's one of the beauties of it all, is almost like Joseph's many-colored coat. The colors of the rainbow make up the entire spectrum of what we call light. So any questions to this point?
Let me unmute the callers.
Okay.
Just remember, if you don't have a question, please be very quiet or put your own phone on *6. Now, if you have your phone on *6, when I unmute everyone, you will be unmuted as well. So you would need to re-*6 yourself if you have a barking dog or something. One moment.
Hello?
Okay, who would like to ask Mellen a question?
Hello, Mellen. This is John again.
Hi, John.
Excuse me. You mentioned about keeping conscious through the entire experience. What advice would you have for us on this side of the sky as to practice keeping conscious so that we could maybe do some things before we even get to that stage? Would you have any advice there?
Yes, I like that question. Here's how I practice it, because this is one of the practices of this life. The next time I completely die and start a new incarnation, I want to die fully conscious, and I want to be born fully conscious. Well, here's a simple thing we can all do every day, and it's a very important exercise. Before you go to sleep at night, say you're going to remember something exactly, and then try to wake up exactly where you left off. It's a practice that really does work, and you can get good at it. It sounds simple, but how many people literally go to sleep wanting and desiring one thing and wake up the next morning wanting and desiring something else, or not keeping the continuum? This will also help you become better manifestors in your life, because the best manifestors I've known are not so much the shamans. It's people that really have decided what they want, and they literally go to sleep thinking about it and wake up thinking about it without missing a beat. It's a simple but effective exercise and can be a lot of fun. You can do it with friends, in fact.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. So I'll go on, and let's see, I'm going through my notes here. We'll cover a good bit of subjects to come up. Right now we're sort of covering things in kind of a general manner. But one thing I can tell you that's going to make your life review and in fact, your full death experience, if that's what happens, much better for you is it's so important to process our life's issues in the moment while we're alive. Don't let it build up over a lifetime of years and layers. So it's crucial, if you're into higher consciousness, to resolve your issues here and now. And the issues never go away, by the way. In fact, even once you become enlightened, the same tests are all around in the universe, from gravity to karma. These things never go away. I don't care how enlightened you are. Even if you're the Dalai Lama, he gets tested all the time, doesn't he? What happens, as you become more enlightened, you get better at taking the test. And it gets to a point where you go, I know what that test is. I've already taken it. Goodbye. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's very important to process your issues. And so many of our issues are tied to our blood families, our bloodline families, and then next to our friends and acquaintances and people we've done business with predominantly. These are the people we are attracted to. And this is very important, because this is how you end karma. You end karma by forgiving and forgetting. And for some people, they say, well, it's impossible. I don't think I could ever forgive someone for what they did to me. But the truth is, it's not about them. It's more important for you to forgive and forget. The only way you can get free of these magnetic attractions is to forgive and forget. Forgive means take the charge off the memory, and there are so many ways to do that these days, from therapy to prayer to meditation to cranial sacral to body work. There's so many ways to release this today than it ever existed before in history. So it's very good to review your life while you're living, and any major issues that you're aware of, you should try to settle as soon as possible. And this is important because it frees you. Now, when you're trying to forgive someone else, they may be gone already. You may have lost touch with them, but you can't get over what they did. It's important that you do it in your own heart, and I always say verbalize it. Say it out loud to the universe. Have these conversations that some people wait to the grave to have, because I can tell you this, one of the things that you can be aware of while you're on the other side is everything that everyone ever said about you. You can hear it. You can hear it. And what they thought about you. So one of the practices I do, if there's people I've lost track of, or people, there's some people that you just can't get through to. They're so, hard-headed and stuck in their stuff, that you could lovingly try for years to talk to this person. They won't hear you or talk to you. Well, you can have this conversation privately, but have it out loud as if they're right in front of you, and have this conversation with them. And I guarantee you they will hear this when they go to the other side. They will hear you finally. And I've had many conversations like that over the years, that I know these people, when they have their, when they pass over to the other side, they will hear what I had to say, and they will hear the love, and they will understand that I was trying to forgive and forget. The forget part is very important, though. How many times we get involved in our karmic ties and debts because we keep repeating the same mistake? We keep going back to the same people. We keep expecting a zebra to change its stripes, and usually that's not going to be the case. It's totally possible, of course. But so the forgive part is very important to discharge the negative charge, because whatever your polarity is when you die, love or hate or whatever, that is exactly what's going to pull you back into your next incarnation, because you do take it with you. You do take it with you. So it's very important to forgive and to get away from these people in many cases, is not hang out with them anymore, not let them keep doing these things to you. Why, how many times we had friends like that, or people we know that continuously tend to aggravate us for no seeming reason. We think they're mean, but if you could see why they were doing it, maybe what their life was like, maybe you could forgive them. But you also need to get away from them. You need to stop the game. And so it's very important.
Can I talk about that a little bit before you go on?
Sure.
That's real interesting. For instance, I'm just going to bring it into a lot of people's situation. They keep marrying the same type of person and learning and learning and learning and learning. But eventually, if they cannot get straightened out, is it better to just stop being associated with that type of person?
Yes, from what I learned, it is. And forgive me for saying this rubs anybody the wrong way, but the high divorce rate is actually a very positive thing, even for the children in many cases. When my mother divorced my father, it was actually, although I missed my father, it was a good thing in the end that she was brave enough to get away from him. Yes, I think it's very, very important. The one thing I did learn on the other side, too, is that we were not put here to suffer. That's our own doing, and usually just out of ignorance or fear. But no one is put here to suffer. That's not your job. Your job is your job description is suffering is not on there. So you don't have to suffer. You don't have to work things out with people if, in fact, they're not going to work out. If they're chronic problems that have gone on and on, the likelihood of them working out in this life is going to be distant. And so in many cases, you just need to stop the pattern. And once you discharge the negative charges on these people and events, when you die with your polarities. If you died with love, if you died with hate, these are the only things that you have to come back to. Do you see what I'm saying? So preparing for your next life is also the ending of karma in this life with certain people, events, even places you may not want to return to. And it's perfectly okay. So it's very important, and we'll get into reincarnation in a little bit, it's very important for those of you that believe in reincarnation to think about this and to end this now, and then start thinking about, well, if I really could be interactive in my own reincarnation, what would I do, where would I want to be, and who would I want to be with? You can actually decide with dear loved friends who's going to be parents in the next life. You can have conversations like that. I'd love to be your child. You see what I mean?
Oh, wow.
So, and these are the kind of conscious conversations we need to start having with one another that make us multidimensional beings. Because if you die with all your issues, you are going to be brought back right away to the same issues, even if your entire bloodline family has died out. Isn't that interesting? Because in some cases, entire families have died out, and of course, I learned we all reincarnate again. But when an entire family dies out, the entire family dies out, that actually frees up a whole lot of energy. But if your polarities are still the same, your hate issues, your love issues, your abuse issues or whatever, you will be brought back almost like natural magnetics. It's very natural. It's not an intellectual process. The universe is self-organizing, and so are we. We're part of the universe, and that means that birds of a feather flock together. There's truth in all of that. So water seeks its own level. So change your feathers, change your level, and you will not come back to those same situations again. It's very important to understand that and to forgive and forget. But if you don't, as I said, even if the entire family has died out, you will be magnetically attracted right back to the very same matrix, and you'll think these people were your parents because they'll act like them.
That is so interesting. In a way, I think it's so lovely to think about, start picking the people that you want to reincarnate with.
Groups do incarnate together, and there are groups that have incarnated over several lifetimes to do good work on the planet, to love each other. It's happening already.
Wow. Well, you know what, Mellen? I'll bet you that you and I were buddies in some other lifetime, and we said, you know what, let's get together and do some teaching about some unusual, fun stuff that people just can't learn anywhere, that it's very specific and wonderful and so healing.
Well, it feels that way. It feels very comfortable, working with you, and we're on the same light wave. It's very good. The interesting thing is that the other side is just as well organized as this side because, like I said, the universe is self-organizing and self-correcting, and so are we. So on the other side, you have all the realms from the darkest darkness and all shades of that all the way over to the lightest light vibrations. And you really do have a choice as to where you go and tune into once you wake up. You can't do this if you're unconscious, caught up, blind, and, quote, spiritually ignorant.
Okay. So we've covered what we can do, like when we first find ourselves out of our body, and we want to remain conscious and not panic. And if we are not blown to smithereens or have some hideous disease that we can't recover from, we could decide to quickly return to our body, and healing might occur during that.
Absolutely.
And say that we're not ready to do that and we want to go to the light. How could we have a more interactive? Well, we've already talked about the life review, and the life review is something that kind of happens all around you, and you judge yourself. Is that right?
It happens, and it'll happen in your particular form of metaphors. If you're Jewish, you'll have a particularly Jewish experience. If you're Muslim, if you're Christian, in my case, I didn't have much of any of that going, so it was sort of wide open. But it's this is. I want people to understand that this is your NDE, and it is the most real and individual experience that you can have, only equal to the life that you're living. It's unique to you, and the light will speak to you uniquely to you. The light recognizes you as you, and I can tell you there is no rush on the other side. I took my time, and you can think of things to ask the light when you get there. Ask, and I say always when the light shows you something, because in the very beginning of my experience with the light, I was shown my metaphors, which was my earliest teachings, the earliest things that were put into my head. And I'd been raised in a Catholic boarding school and that sort of thing. So when I started seeing these images, I asked the light. I had the presence of mind to ask the light to explain what this meant to me, because you'll see a lot of things. Ask the light, what does this mean? And suddenly it's like a veil opens and you get another level, and then you can say, and what does that mean? And another layer will be revealed to you. Explaining things. For me, I had things explained all the way from the simple metaphors all the way down to I was interested in what is the other side made of, which we can talk of in a little while. I had those kind of questions. And if you have these experiences, whether it's a death experience or a near-death experience, and if you get lost, this is important. Sometimes you just are thrown into it and you feel like you're lost. I felt like I was lost. I felt like I was lost in a vast darkness. I did not know what to do. But remember that if you are lost, try to remember that you are in a process, that nothing will harm you, no matter if negative images come up, devils, whatever your metaphors are, they can't do any more to you. You're already dead and out of body. So
yes.
so remember, these images and these emanations cannot harm you. They will not harm you. And the more you are present and wake up to that, you're in a process now, and you can say, okay, show me what this means. Show me what this means. And that was one of the main questions I kept asking the light as I was shown all these programs that I got as a child. You have so many programs in you before you're 6 years old that go in unprocessed. You just take them literally. And there are so many programs in your subconscious that your subconscious just takes literally. And so that will be presented to you also. So you've always got to remember to ask, what does this mean? What is this really about? Don't be afraid to interact with the experience at all, because it is a unique experience, unique for you.
Wow. Well, let's see if anyone has a question about anything we've covered so far. The line should
I have
be
a question.
Open. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Yvonne. I really appreciate you talking about the family, and I'd like to know if we could have a little more talking about that, because it sort of helps me practically in this present experience. For example, I have a brother who, there's just, the two siblings, myself and my brother. He's a year younger than me. And it seems like he's always hated me. And if you look at our lives, I mean, it seems like he really lives on the dark side. He's very abusive to everyone, but I'm the one that he's been the most consistently for like 45 years that's really he's gone after. And if you looked at it and asked an observer, they would name all the good things that I have tried to do for him. I never turn my back against him. It's like I don't know what else to do, and I keep asking, what is this for? But I would really like to help get this resolved, and I was interested in what you had said earlier, that you can just, get away from the person. But, what can I do with this situation? Because it's torn my family apart and the rest of my family, and it's just horrible, and I don't know what to do about it. And I would like some help with that. Can you help me with that?
I'll try, and I'll go back a step or two, because we've got to keep the big picture in mind. When two people, say your parents, when two people get married, they bring two families together, two bloodlines together. And the in-laws may or may not get along with each other. How often does this happen? But also, when two people have children together, they bring two incarnational lines together that may or may not be symbiotic, may or may not be a positive experience, and may or may not ever resonate with each other. That's where a lot of the sibling rivalry comes in. And so... So when you're having children, you're bringing two incarnational lines together that may or may not get along, may or may not have ever been together before, and this can increase the anxiety and the some of the activity that goes on. I can honestly say that, and I've been through this many times with my family. My brother and I never resonated, and I know for a fact now that I came in through my mother's line, and my brother came in through my father's line, and we had never been together before. And patterns of jealousy sat in. I was an older brother, and I never took care of him, and I look back on that now, and I go, I can't believe I didn't take care of my little brother. But my brother and I are only now beginning to talk. Later in life, only now are we beginning to talk because we have learned to become friends. But quite often, why people get married is a very interesting dynamic. Why people decide to get married, why they're attracted to each other, and as we can see in about half the cases, because about 50% of marriages end in divorce, they weren't making fully conscious decisions. I can't tell you how many people, because I used to counsel for about 15 years, and I can tell you how many people said, I don't know why I married him, I don't know why I married her. I have no idea. And that's because quite often we're attracted. Karma is highly attractive. It is one of the most attractive things out there. And and I'm getting around to the big picture, down to the individual picture, but karma is so attractive and magnetic. And so you can be attracted to someone for all the wrong reasons. I mean, there's plenty of songs even written about that, but it's so true. Most people think they're trying to find a soulmate. And as I learned on the other side, you only have one soulmate, and that is the self, your triune nature, your male, female, superconscious nature. And because of our religions and Puritan philosophies and all that, we were never allowed to get in touch with ourselves and develop that relationship with ourselves. So we've always been taught to seek it outside of ourselves. So what I learned on the other side was that if you always try to find this outside of yourself, you won't find it really. What you will find are two things. You'll find life mates and playmates, not soulmates, because your soul is your soulmate, and you should treat yourself that way. You should have a love affair with yourself, a true loving love affair, because you know intimately what kind of love you need. And in the end, only you can give you that love. Everyone else will fall short over time. But we do tend to pick life mates, and life mates are people we tend to live with, have children with, and spend long times with. We do have playmates, but those come in two, positive and negative configurations. You can find a soulmate or a life mate that just takes you down, the negative path of life. You can find a playmate or life mate that really enhances your life, and you both grow together, and it's beautiful. So when these people get together and start making children, it's quite often a real crapshoot. It's like going to Vegas and gambling. What's actually going to be born? We need to be a lot more conscious about the way we have children and why we want children. It's very important. I was shown on the other side that the saving grace for most of us is that it's when a child is being conceived, there's a light. And I saw this in my life review when I was being conceived. There was a light created between my mother and my father. And depending on the level of that light is the level of the soul that can come into that, because a higher soul cannot come into a lower light. It'll destroy that energy, and a lower soul can't live in a higher soul vibration. It's just impossible. So depending on the type of light at the moment of conception depends on the level of the soul. The saving grace for most of us, and I'm getting around, this is sort of a big picture, the saving grace for most of us is that, generally speaking, the mother was feeling love when you were conceived. It's so natural. And so that most of us were conceived with a good bit of love. But there are children that are born without any love at all. There was no love light at all when that child was conceived. Say a rape, or there's many configurations. The wealthy have these arranged marriages, things like that. But so then you have these family dynamics that can sometimes just be hell on earth, and they're not supportive, they're abusive, and you may have in his configuration the scent of a victim. You're the one he wants to pick on. Now, I don't know if you know this, and I ask people to be honest with me sometimes. Which of your parents do you look most like?
Are you speaking to me directly?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know. It's hard to say. I'm not like anybody in my family. It's just, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like I fit in with any of them.
And
I consider myself very enlightened.
Mm-hmm.
And I really have been a seeker since I was a child.
Mm-hmm.
And you were talking about that light at conception, but my mother is a very, unyielding, cold, distant person. My daddy was very loving and open and sweet, but I would not say either one of them are very enlightened.
It's the love.
Pardon me?
It's the love. And who does your brother look like of the two
They
parents?
got a divorce when I was 10. My brother definitely came through my mother's line and looks like her grandfather, and all of those people have been very, very rough and abusive and alcoholics and all that. And my daddy's side is all very docile and sweet.
So what I'm saying is there's a natural path for these things to happen, and your brother is only carrying on the family bloodline traits. And up until very recently, we've all been trapped in what has been called bloodline reincarnation. We've been trapped in the same families over and over and over again from the beginning of time, especially if you live in little villages, in Africa or little villages or tribes. You had very little chance of incarnating anywhere else, actually. And bloodline incarnation is also a form of soul slavery. And this is why the New World became so important, because people broke bloodlines and started mixing bloodlines that had never been mixed before, creating whole new avenues, whole new pathways, which were incredible, freeing up of energy. And so you're in a situation in which it's not your fault. Your brother is carrying on a bloodline family trait, and this has been reincarnated through him. It's in his blood. And so the most important thing you can do is to just let it be. Not engage in this and get caught up in the drama of it. It's very, very important to also not hate him and to forgive him for everything that he's done. But if you keep going back into the arena and he keeps doing these things, you're never going to get over it.
Well, the thing with him, I can separate myself from him, and I don't have any contact with him right now. But I'm sending his children. He has a son and a daughter, and to college right now. And what he has done this past thing, even if I separate myself from him, he has now separated me and my niece, because it's obvious she's kind of from his bloodline too. So it doesn't matter what's going on. I mean, he finds a way to do something where I'm concerned. It's like he literally hates my guts. One time, I was having a thing done, and I have been a shaman in previous lifetimes, and I do some of that now. But someone told me that I was like a medicine woman, and I could banish him from his life. And it seems like in our whole family situation, that's all he tries to do to me is get me banished in one way or another, And all I want to know now is what is the enlightened thing that I can do? Like my dad died a couple of years ago. My mother is still living. It's hard to avoid these things, even though I don't see him, haven't seen him since my dad died. He lives like 10 minutes away. But the underlying, you can feel it. I always feel like I want to take a shower every time I think about him. Or I'll hear something from some other family member of what he is saying and doing where I'm concerned. It seems like he is obsessed with me, trying to harm me, even if I don't even have any, interaction with him. And I would like to do take the high road, and I'm willing to do anything. And some of these things that you've been saying, I can see, have thought about previously concerning him. But when it's still actually happening, it's really difficult,
Absolutely, so, and this is why, in the end, you have to take care of you and not make any emotional excuses to carry on this, because literally they would do okay without you. And it's just a decision you have to make for yourself. And we could go on and on about this, and I'd love to talk to you, say, outside of this conversation. But basically, there are some difficult situations in which we ourselves make too many excuses to stay in them, because we can make up 1,000 excuses to stay connected. And at some point, you have to really think about your own karma and your own soul. And it's perfectly okay. You shouldn't feel guilty about it.
And could I
being raised like a Christian.
Pardon me?
I'd like to
I said, but being raised as a Christian, then I think that, I'm supposed to try to get this healed with him. And I've tried everything I possibly could do and know. And like you were referring earlier, sometimes I think one thing I need to learn is to let go of that, and that's neither right nor wrong, and that,
right.
maybe it's not to be for this lifetime.
Yes. And that's true. I think you're on the verge of it, so I think it's very correct what you're feeling.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And I would like to interject. You might just write a letter, don't send it to him, but just write down your feelings and then read it out loud. As Mellen was saying earlier, his spirit will hear it. And then just let it go. You don't have to be the savior of the world. You can't learn everything. And you know what I'm saying? Learn it and see it through till it changes. Sometimes you have to divorce your family members.
It's true.
Sometimes it's just not going to work.
And just remember, we all have a higher self, a higher aspect, a Christ light within us, every one of us. And so sometimes it's better if your higher self or your Christ light actually talks to their higher self or Christ light and have them intercede for you. That's also another technique that tends to work on many people.
Okay, thank you so much.
Sure.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to ask Mellen a question? Before you do that, pause one moment. Don't say anything important, Mellen, because I'm going to restart the recording.